What's up, everyone? It's time for this week's Owl House episode review. I don't look very neat right now. I'm sorry. This week's episode is Keeping Up A-fear-ances. Spoilers as always, especially for the ending of this episode. If you have not seen this episode, watch it first, then come back here. All right, let's go. It begins with a flashback with Ida after she's cursed, and she's describing how when she's in the owl beast form, she's in this like dream world and she sees this weird owl demon that she's running away from. Like, you saw this weird owl demon in the trailer. Like, the actual clip of the owl demon you saw in the trailer was not what you saw in this episode. And the fact that that clip implies that this owl beast will be somehow set free, like, is a bit worrying. But yeah, we see Ida's mom, and Ida's mom is yelling at the healer for not being able to heal. And she's like, I will do anything in my power to cure this curse, even if we have to cut it out of her. And like, Ida starts freaking out. She runs away. She's running through the woods, and here's how she found the door to the human realm. She tripped over it. It was just like kind of buried in the ground, and it was just like, huh. And I kind of had a crack over it, and it's like, Ida says later in the episode that, oh yeah, that door was old when I found it. And Ida just escapes into the human realm so her mom won't find her. And, you know, it was hinted back in Convention that Ida doesn't get along with her parents, so this isn't really a surprise. Alright, so we got the intro, and then Ida waking up in the present. It's the first appearance of Ida's new outfit, which, I mean, a lot of people have already talked about it, but it's a cool outfit. Lilith is starting to succumb to the curse a little bit, like that shot in the trailer where she's growing feathers on her hand, that's here. Ida's like, don't worry, I got an elixir, and feeds it to her, and Lilith's like, oh god, you've had to deal with this for 30 years, oh, I'm a horrible person. You know, kind of the same discussion they've had earlier. We finally get confirmation of something that's been debated about in the Owl House fandom for a while, the taking off and putting back limbs thing. Because Ida is the only one we've seen be able to do that so far. There's a moment in the first season where Ida implies this happens to other witches. She's like, oh, this is normal when you get older. But, like, no other witch has shown doing that, so some fans were thinking, oh, it's a side effect of the curse. And Ida accidentally, like, rips Lilith's hand off while helping her up off the ground, and Lilith freaks out, and Ida's like, oh yeah, that happens. So we finally get confirmation that this is not a normal witch thing. This is because of the curse. So take that as you will. Gwendolyn shows up. Ida and Lilith's mom is named Gwendolyn. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. Gwendolyn shows up, and she's like, I'm here to cure your curse. And Ida's like, no thanks. Lilith is happy to see Gwendolyn, but she just gets kind of pushed aside in favor of Ida. And it's like, you finally get what their dynamic was. It's, oh, Lilith tried hard for attention, but, you know, she never, no matter how hard she tried, she just couldn't get the validation she wanted. As I mentioned before, a lot of people were theorizing about, you know, why Lilith cursed Ida, and some people were like, oh, their mom is abusive, and Lilith was afraid of what would happen to her if she lost that duel. So, this episode is like, no, their mom isn't abusive. But the reason Lilith cursed Ida, which still hasn't been said for sure, but there's the implication in this episode that, like, Lilith was craving for validation, affirmation from her mom, so that maybe if she won that duel, that she'd finally get it, and Lilith knew the only way she'd win is if she cheated. So, that's never been directly said, but the information stated in this episode leads me to believe that that could be part of why Lilith cursed Ida. Apparently Gwen shows up with a new plan to cure Ida every year, and Lilith's like, she visits you every year, and it's, you really feel bad for Lilith. Luz, you know, is missing her mom, and she's like, hey, don't listen to Ida, I'll help you. And Gwen is like, oh yeah, I have some information about the human realm, so if you help me, I'll tell you this information. And Luz is like, yeah, let's go. Gwen gathered ingredients to give to this, like, four-armed mystic healer guru guy. I think his name was, like, Wortlop or something like that. He gives her a book which has, like, the information about how to cure the curse. Supposedly, you have that shot which reveals Gwendolyn is buff, which is, like, the promo image for the episode. And, you know, it makes sense because she's in the Beast Keeping Coven, because She reveals later in the episode that she joined the coven to see if they could help with Ida's curse, which they couldn't. Gwen and Luz, they set up these traps to, like, drive the beast out, or I think that's what they said, and Luz is like, hey, none of these plans seem to actually be working. Let me look at this book you've got. And Luz is, like, paging through, and it's like, oh, it's just a whole bunch of scams. And I saw a post that someone did where they're saying that Gwen is an anti-vaxxer because she's ignoring the actual cures, the elixirs, because she thinks those are bad, and she's falling for someone's like, oh, new home remedy, it's perfect. And I'm like, oh my god, she totally is an anti-vaxxer. How did I not realize that myself? You have King sitting at home. You know, he notes that because Ida and Lilith's mom shows up, maybe his dad will show up. And I'm just like, oh, King is so cute. And Lilith's like, why bother? You know, sometimes you try as hard as you want for your parents to notice you, but, you know, it never amounts to anything. Lilith was like, oh, your dad couldn't even stick around to watch you hatch from the egg. And I'm just like, oh, don't be mean to King. That was harsh. It's okay, don't listen to Lilith. You deserve all the love in the world. Lilith starts to suffer from the curse again, so she goes to find the elixirs, but there aren't any. And she transforms into what I think we were all agreed to call the Raven Beast, since, you know, she's got the Raven beam. And it's revealed that Gwen took all the elixirs because she thinks they're worthless, and is like, well, you know, her reasoning is that, well, Ida's not doing any good with these, so I might as well take them off her hands. She just has them in a big sack. Eventually, Ida catches up with Luz and Gwen, and she gets mad about what they were doing, and she becomes the Owl Beast. But then Lilith shows up and just grabs the Owl Beast away, and it's like, huh. Gwen heads over to that Wartlop guy's cave, and she sees that, oh, it was just a scam. It was just these, like, 4 rat-looking things in costume. It's very reminiscent of Witches Before Wizards. Was that the name of the second episode? Well, whatever the second episode was, it's very reminiscent of that, because you had the puppeteer demon in that episode who was, like, preying on Luz's fantasies and set up this scam to lure her in. And this is kind of a similar situation. Gwen gets, like, really pissed. She's like, don't you mess with me again, and drives them out. But, you know, she still has those elixirs, so, you know, she'll still come in to save the day. Ida and Lilith in Curse form are attacking each other in Bonesboro and destroying a bunch of stuff. Luz is like, oh, I'll go to Morton, the person who made Ida's elixir, and it's like, oh, I'll just buy some more. And Morton's like, do you have any money? And Luz is like, no, but I do have this, like, hyper-realistic drawing I made of you. And it's just like, closes the door. And it's like, Luz is like, well, I'm out of ideas. Then Gwen shows up with the elixirs. Gwen apologizes to Ida for treating the curse like it's something to be ashamed of, and it helps Ida regain some control and, like, internally fight that Owl Beast. And she apologizes to Lilith for, you know, never giving her the attention she deserved. And she gives them the elixir, and they're back to normal, and, you know, the feels. Gwen leaves. Lilith decides to go with her to make up for lost time, and obviously Hootie's really sad because they've just spent the last few episodes bonding, and no, their friendship is, well, it's not over, but it'll be pen pals. They'll be pen pals. There's a joke where King apparently didn't even know Lilith was living at the Owl House. It was funny. Ian and Lilith's dad is mentioned, and we don't know anything about him, but he's probably not bad if Lilith is excited to see him again. Before Gwen leaves, she goes to Luz and is like, hey, I promise you information about the human realm, and tells her that her great-grandmother, so Ian and Lilith's great-great-grandmother, like, once knew a human that was in Bonesboro, but that human disappeared one day, and there's information about him in the library, which is obviously setting up the subplot of the next episode. But she's talking about how there's this stuff called, like, Titan's blood, which can cause, like, rifts between the realms. Is this human Belos? Because I'm thinking it might be. You know, this human seemingly disappeared. Well, no, he didn't disappear. He just shed his old persona and put on the mask and the suit, and oh, he's this new persona. But he didn't disappear. Gwendolyn is an interesting character, because she's like a foil to both Camilla and Odelia, because it's like we have 3 different flavors of mother in this show, and that sounded very, very wrong. Like Camilla, she cares about her daughters, and wants what's best for them in the end. But like Odalia, she doesn't necessarily give them all the attention they want. Is kind of neglectful, isn't like the most caring at times. But she veers more towards the Camilla side of parenting, especially by the end of this episode. So, you have the pain and the P is parental conflicts, which, so far we've had 2 of them this season, and some of the dialogue with King had in this episode about his dad is like hinting towards a 3rd one. And the 4th one, here we go. Luz is wondering what her mom is doing right now because she figures that now is about the time she should have returned home from camp. So then we cut back to Earth and you see Camilla sobbing and it's like, oh, she's crying because Luz is missing. Nope, she was crying because of some like animal documentary, and then this shadow Luz just reaches over and is like, here you go, mommy, here's some tissues. And this shadow Luz, you don't see her face, but everyone watching that, including me, was like, this opens up a whole new can of worms. This doppelganger Luz, who I'm going to call Luce with an S because of the typo in the letter, we don't know where she came from. Now, it's possible that the Emperor's Coven sent her, which, I mean, is not impossible now because Bellows has the portal. But since this doppelganger Luz is almost certainly connected to the letters, I'm going to say that's probably not an option. Gwen mentions the Titan blood that can create rifts between realms, and since that's mentioned immediately before fake Luz's introduction, there's the Bad Girls Coven, there's the Emperor's Coven, there's this 3rd party who can travel between realms. Maybe this is related to whoever just left the portal behind in the middle of the woods. It's like, was Ida supposed to find it? Is this part of some prophecy? Ugh. The way it's set up implies that Luce has sinister intentions. I'm just bringing this up because it's what I said in my first Owl House video, that what if this is just someone who was writing these letters and sent this fake Luz so Camilla wouldn't worry and think Luz was in the Boiling Isles, and the sinister introduction is like a red herring. But I don't think that's true. I think that this is sinister machinations by some sort of 3rd party. Either way, whatever's true, the shot of Camilla in the trailer implies that some way Camilla will find out that this isn't Luz. That'll probably happen when Bellows fixes the portal and Luz's texts come through and she watches those videos and she's like, okay. This was a really good episode. I mean, so far this season has been top notch with all of its episodes, and I'm really excited for the rest of the season. My next long form video will be coming out in a few days, so stay tuned for that. But until then, thanks for watching.